Guys, it's Paul. So today I wanted to talk a little bit about the pandemic and how I actually think that it sort of helped Yu-Gi-Oh, which I know off the bat that sounds weird because I mean it literally caused the ruin of Yu-Gi-Oh in-person tournaments, but I actually think that it hasn't been all bad. And the reason I wanted to talk about it was because recently we got confirmation that we're not going to be having a Yu-Gi-Oh! World Championship. I don't think that should have come as a huge surprise to anybody. I mean, if there haven't been regionals, then of course we can't really do a World Championship. But it's just interesting because it's kind of like, man, it's been like over a year since COVID basically hit and, kind of caused tournaments to end. And for a while, it was just looking, I guess it went through a lot of phases. Because, like, when that sort of shutdown stuff first started in March, we thought, okay, well, maybe this will only be for like a few weeks and then we'll be back to everything. And I remember hearing people say, like, yeah, tournaments will be back probably in a month. But then, like, it kind of stretched on. It's like, oh, they'll be back in the summer. And then, well, they'll be back in the fall. And it clearly just at this point, they ain't back. We still don't have tournaments back. Now, it seems like we'll probably be getting tournaments, but I mean, I don't have that much to base that on. I mean, yeah, we have like vaccinations and things are looking better, but I'm not talking about when COVID's gonna end. I am talking about, though, how it does seem like it sort of has done some good for our community. And I basically mean, like, there's been a few things. The first is it seems like people are actually more interested in buying like Yu-Gi-Oh cards, whether sealed or singles, than ever before, which is a little bit strange to me. I'm starting to kind of get a better understanding of why that is, but when the pandemic hit, there were no tournaments. So you would think, well, what would be the point in owning Yu-Gi-Oh cards at that point, right? Like, because I mean, if it's just like I can't play with these, why should I have them? But I think maybe people sort of viewed it instead as like, this is my chance to catch up on cards that I missed, or my chance to build up a collection so that when tournaments come back, I'm prepared. I think that anticipation for the return of tournaments might have actually factored in really big. Also, I guess, stimulus checks, we actually saw like distinct spikes in, market activity in Yu-Gi-Oh! Whenever those stimulus checks were dropping. People were getting money, they were hopping on TCG Player and stuff, buying lots of cards. So, I mean, I think that inadvertently, I suppose, that's the way that the pandemic sort of helped. Maybe the downside there is that card prices seem like they've gotten a lot higher during this period of time. I don't think that's all like the fault of COVID. I mean, like, also we've been having like kind of short run packs. Like, I think Etco and Rise of the Duelist in particular didn't get like super long runs and stuff, and like Toon Chaos kind of like that was a thing. Then products were getting delayed a bit, so I don't know. It's kind of a mix. It's a little bit of everything, but I do think that as far as activity goes, it seems like people are actually more into buying cards now than ever. Another really interesting thing has been remote duels. So I'll be honest, I was kind of a naysayer at first. I thought remote duels are just like ripe for cheating, and it just seems like it'd be too cumbersome and expensive for like a player to really set up. That hasn't been the case, though. I'm actually really proud of Konami. They have managed to make remote duels into something that happen consistently. They're fun. The remote duel extravaganzas are neat. I've done some videos, with like Team Samurai X1. I did like a remote duel against him, and I mean, I've actually done some remote duels just in myself and my own like sort of private personal time. It's not bad. Now, I know there's been some controversy around like, if people do or don't cheat or whatever, but I think that, cheating exists in everything. In real life Yu-Gi-Oh!, of course, in remote Yu-Gi-Oh! Konami is at least, they're taking steps to kind of address it, so I don't really want to talk too much about that here. I don't really think there's much to say. I mean, it's a risk that comes with remote dueling, but I do think remote dueling's fun, and one of the nice things that I've seen outside of just Konami doing more of it is actually that I've seen a lot of other content creators doing remote duels. Like nowadays, it's like a commonplace thing on Twitch, remote duel locals and people remote dueling against other content creators on their streams. I think that's really cool. I think that that's something where, like, even when this pandemic ends and we have real life tournaments back, there might actually be sort of we might still see remote duels just exist as a way that content creators collab, or perhaps even a way to still do locals safely. It's fun because you still get like kind of the physical sort of aspect of like holding the cards and playing them and activating them, and it's a much more personable experience to be able to talk to your opponent as you kind of put the cards down and activate them. I know for some people they don't care, they play yugioh Pro, they play Dueling Book, it's fine. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. I mean, I'm sure those have had their own surge of popularity, which I guess we'll talk about in a second. But I mean, I do think that remote duels gave kind of a middle ground of still being able to play with cards, and I kind of like it. Like, I kind of dig it. They're offering lots of cool prizes. They've made remote duel mats. They've done remote duel tournaments. Content creators like them. It's pretty cool. It's not without its downsides, but it's pretty cool. And it also seems like maybe this pandemic has accelerated, I like to think in my head canon at least, has accelerated the development of that Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duels game, which we still don't actually have that many details on. Maybe we'll find out more details at E3, because they said Konami's going to be at E3. I think Konami maybe has finally been exposed a bit, and they've seen that, like, hey, MTG and like Pokemon have official online components, so they aren't as affected by a pandemic like this, at least in terms of like whether or not players can play, as Yu-Gi-Oh! Has been. And I think Konami's had to jump through a lot of hoops to get remote duels to a place where they can kind of confidently do it. But I think that might have lit a bit of a fire underneath whatever company is developing, Master Duel, to hurry up and like get this going, get the announcement out. I hope there's a lot I hope for Master Duels. I made a video on it. I might actually make a follow-up video once we get more details, if we get more details. But yeah, Duel Links has been fine, right? Because it isn't really affected by, like, you don't need to go physically play Duel Links with somebody. You can always play online. And Dueling Book and yugioh Pro have had probably huge spikes. I would imagine if I could see the analytics, I'm sure there's been like way more time that people spend on these websites now. I mean, if you aren't having to go to work, or aren't able to go to work or school or whatever, then there's just a lot more time that you can engage with Duel Links, you can engage with yugioh Pro, you can engage with Dueling Book, anything that you're able to remotely do at your home, like, that's grown, and that's really cool. Another thing too is I think that we've had a greater sense of community since the pandemic, which is like sort of weird to say, and this might be a little bit more like of a personal thing, I guess, for me. Like, I've been more involved on social media, specifically like, Yu-Gi-Oh! Twitter. That's like a place I kind of like to hang out. It's fun, and a lot more people are really active on there. It's gotten more active in the past year. I guess it's because we're all trapped inside and want to play Yu-Gi-Oh! So the next best thing we can do besides playing an online sim is to just talk about how much we want to play Yu-Gi-Oh! With each other while we're on these sites. I don't know, it's weird. But yeah, I mean, so that's kind of been neat. I think that there's been a certain level of community growth and like closeness that maybe we wouldn't have had if people were just able to still go to tournaments. So I think that basically while we all sit in this waiting room and hoping tournaments come back, we have more time to interact with our fellow duelists online in different groups and on different forums. Twitter was kind of my Yu-Gi-Oh! Place of choice for a really long time. It's an interesting place. Got some really vibrant people and personalities, and so that's just really fun. I've also seen a shift in like Yu-Gi-Oh! Content creation. This is something that's kind of more, I guess, in my neck of the woods. Because there aren't tournaments anymore, a lot of content creators aren't really able to, make a YCS report, right? Like, you can't really do that. And yes, there's plenty of online tournaments, which is something I forgot to mention. There's been lots of those just on yugioh and on, Dueling Book and stuff, and through remote duels. So lots of online tournaments, and you can cover them, but I mean, I guess like there's nothing that's going to quite replace the impact of like, the big YCS weekend, the first weekend of a format or whatever. And so I think content creators, YouTubers and streamers and everything have sort of had to shift their aim from, okay, well, here's the weekly meta-analysis because that's so much more ambiguous and up in the air, and to just sort of making other things. That's where we've seen really cool series like, sealed only challenges, stuff like, what is it called? The History of Yu-Gi-Oh! That's the one that I've really been liking, but also progression series. There's like that Wheel of Yu-Gi-Oh! Thing that Sam does. There's so many different things that like I think content creators have been sort of forced to think a little bit more outside the box and present Yu-Gi-Oh in more interesting and different ways because, you know, there's not like tournaments to cover. So that's sort of been a thing. And I guess just overall, it kind of has, for everyone, just cemented our love of Yu-Gi-Oh! Because we just want, I want this game to come back. I want to go to a YCS again. I want to be able to go to events. I want to be able to meet people. I want to be able to play physically. I guess a small, nice change, hopefully, that this whole thing caused is people will be a little bit more hygiene conscious now, and there will be a bit less like, I think there's like a rule now where you can't touch other people's cards without permission anymore, like, or to be more, I guess, I don't know. Basically, Yu-Gi-Oh! Is always kind of a germy game. You're exchanging cards, shuffling people's decks. I think that they've kind of updated some policy docs around that, and I hope that that's something that like really sticks. So when tournaments come back, there's a little bit less like, you know, sweaty, dirty, you know, like greasy fingers like touching stuff, and people are maybe a little bit more aware of that. So that'd be nice. But yeah, back to the point. I am really excited for tournaments to finally be able to come back. I've been waiting for it. I think that we've all been waiting for it. I think that if nothing else, this pandemic has taught people that they really do like Yu-Gi-Oh! And they do want it to come back. And we're all just like at the edge of our seats. Like, you know, when will Konami make the announcement? I'm curious. Like I said at the beginning, I'd like to think the fall, but I don't know. I can't tell the future. I don't know anything. Hopefully we'll know something soon. We'll see. But anyways, I wanted to ask you guys, what do you think of Yu-Gi-Oh! And its relationship with this whole pandemic and how it's changed things? Obviously, you know, not everything's been perfect. Of course we don't have tournaments. Of course we don't, you know, we've had some product delays and we've had some remote duel drama and, you know, stuff like that. But what would you say have been some of the high points of it, the good points, the good things to come of it? Very interested in hearing in the comments below. I really do read those comments, by the way, guys. So don't worry. I do read. It's interesting. It's fun. All right. That's it for this video. I've gone long enough. I'll see you guys in the next one. Pass turn.